Thank you for listening. Thank you for joining us at glennbeck.com. You can still check out everything that is at glennbeck.com, including the behind-the-scenes show, which you get about 50% more information in every show because I just don't have time to cover it. But as we break, Jason, our chief researcher, he goes in and he talks to the insiders. It's a really cool community as well, and kind of sweeps things up. I was just listening to him, and he was talking about what Trump did yesterday with Minnesota and how he felt a little angry yesterday. And quite honestly, I agree, because what I see here happening in Minnesota is an insurrection. Clearly, it's an insurrection. I mean, and we've got the paperwork. We have the goods on it. And I want those people arrested. I want them tried. And if they're found guilty, I want them in jail. But I think Trump does too. He's not stupid. He's not stupid. When I first saw this story yesterday, what he was doing, I thought, is he waving the white flag? What is he doing? What is he doing? Is this all about the election and getting reelected and he's got to make nicey nice? And I don't think it is. It is if you are reacting emotionally. And I want to say this. I could be wrong on this, so I don't mean to belittle you or have you think that I'm smarter than you, because I can guarantee you I'm not in almost all but Al Gore's case. I'm not smarter than you. I just look at things differently, and I could be wrong. But I'll give you a lens to see this through, and then a chart on how we're going to know whether it is it is a white flag or not. Okay, and I don't think it is a white flag. If you're looking at this through the lens of traditional political or cable news, you're going to look at this and say this is a retreat. However, if you look at it as a counterinsurgency, if you look at it through that lens of counterinsurgency, federalism, and an optics war lens, then it's different. Okay? Let me walk you through this. Because what we're seeing Trump shift the battlefield, not abandon it. And let me take you through this cleanly and tactically here. First, what would a surrender or a blink actually look like? If Trump was blinking, this is what would happen. He would end the enforcement nationwide. He would call off ICE operations. He would publicly repudiate Homan or Miller. He would admit wrongdoing or illegality, and he would accept the Gestapo snatching people off the streets narrative. None of that happened. Instead, and now think of him in Art of the Deal, he narrowed the enforcement criteria. Political pressure is rerouted. Optics cooled. Legal authority preserved. Responsibility transferred back to the states. This is not a surrender. I believe this is a reframing of the fight, and it's really smart. If this is what it is, it's really smart. The strategic objective here that I think most people are going to miss is, when I just said, he narrowed the enforcement criteria. Let me ask you, what was his criteria? Because I had a problem with it when he said it months ago. What was the enforcement criteria? Was it to go scoop up every illegal on the streets? Was it? Was it to send everybody who came here to send them home? Is that what ICE was doing? Because it wasn't. Because I remember when he said it, I'm like, what? We should be sending everybody that was here home. And he said, no. The goal here is to get the really bad criminals off the streets. That's what he wanted. So the goal was never ICE agents everywhere all the time. The goal was this: force blue state leadership to choose publicly and unmistakably between protecting violent criminals or cooperating with federal law enforcement. Okay, that's what he's been saying the whole thing. How are you people defending this? These are rapists in your community. So what Trump has just done is he has separated into three groups. One, the violent criminal illegals, Easily moral. Everybody's for that. Okay. 2, the local state officials who shield them. There's another group. And 3, the protest movements trying to provoke a legitimacy crisis. So he's now broken those 3 up. Minnesota was sliding towards a designed confrontation. Street chaos, viral clips, allegations of federal overreach. The Senate Dems were threatening a shutdown. The media was building an authoritarian. We were headed towards everything that there's no way out, okay? And that environment only benefits one side, and it isn't the Trump side. It's not our side. The only thing he could have done was escalate. And do you think that's what they didn't want? That's exactly what they wanted. So he changed the terrain. He also, and this is telling to me, he also went and relieved the U.S. Border Patrol commander, Gregory Bovino. So this was part of it that really bothered me, okay? Because it's the hardest part emotionally. Here's a guy who was very, very clear on things, but it is the clearest tactically. Bovino was a guy who was saying, I mean, he even said something that was absolutely wrong this weekend. You don't have a right to carry a gun at a protest. No, you don't have a right to interfere with police. Once you engage with police and you're carrying a gun, then that's a different story. But he said a lot of things. He was defending some things that I thought were a little indefensible. But he was a lightning rod. He was a walking headline. He was a pretext for the Senate Democrats. I mean, he was a symbol. Whether it was fair or not, doesn't matter. Perception is reality. He was rogue federal officer escalating online while operating in a blue city. That's poison if you're in an optics war. And every war must worry about optics. If you're going to win, you have to worry about optics. So what does Trump do? He rotates that guy out. Well, now the Senate shutdown talks, that weakens. That they're not. How are you going to shut down? He's giving, right? The media narratives loses the villain. The Department of Homeland Security regains message discipline, and the fight moves from personality back to policy. This is classic Trump. What does Trump say in Art of the Deal? And we've seen him do it over and over and over again. Never die on someone else's hill. If it isn't the hill you chose, don't die on a hill they're choosing. Only die on the hill you choose. So when he talks to Walz and Fry, I don't think this is capitulation. I think these were traps. Let me read the 3-point plan again carefully, okay? What he didn't ask for. He didn't ask for sanctuary repeal. He didn't ask for universal cooperation, and he didn't ask for mass raids. He asked for one narrow, morally defensible thing, okay? Turn over the illegal immigrants already in prison and in jail for rape and murder and everything else. That's it, which is what he said he wanted in the first place, okay? I think this whole push, again, has been Overton window. He wanted the ones who were on the streets raping. That's who they were arresting. Now he's just said, give me the ones you already have in prison. Okay. This does 2 things. It isolates the extremists. Because if Walz and Fry refuse that, well, now, excuse me, I said you do it. I'm not asking for everybody, all the Somalis that live on the street. I'm asking for the rapists and the traffickers and the violent offenders, the ones that you have already arrested. Why are you defending them now? They have to go on record, no ambiguity. That takes all of the political weight off of them and shifts it back to Trump. It shifts accountability. Now Trump can actually truthfully say, look, I offered a focused, humane, criminal-only solution, and they're still standing in the way. That's devastating in court. That's devastating in Congress. That is devastating in public opinion. Win. Next, agents are leaving Minneapolis. What does that mean? When I read that, I'm like, what? This line is doing enormous psychological work for the left. Or is it? Because what's likely happening is metro surges are scaling down, the overt presence is reduced, the intelligence warrants and targeting is continuing, but cooperation is demanded through custody and transfers instead of street ops. Get those guys first. In other words, less spectacle, same authority, cleaner lanes. I've been saying for the last few days, Trump wants this to be boring. He wants this to be boring. This should not be a daily spectacle. This should be boring. We're going and getting the good guys. We're going to get the bad guys, and the good guys are winning. But that's not what's happening now. Trump does not need ICE agents clashing with protesters on camera to deport criminals. Have you been watching this at all and thought, what is the rest of the world seeing this through their eyes, through the BBC and everybody else? You know how this is making America look. We look like Iran because of the way it's being spun around the rest of the world. And I'm not saying that's true, but optics matter. He needs paper trails, custody chains, and legal clarity. Now, he pulls one guy out and he says, we're sending in somebody else that can work with you. And who does he send? This is the real tell. Tom Homan? If this was a retreat or a white flag, Homan would not be the guy who is being sent in. Okay? Instead, Homan is sent in. He's the face. He's the negotiator. He's the enforcer after all the political dust settles. Homan is not a cupcake. I don't know if you've noticed that. Okay? That should tell you that to me is a signal to you who are like, I think he just surrendered. No. He sent in Tom Homan. That's like sending into Iran, you know what, we're going to negotiate, and we're sending Raisin Cane. Homan's role is just really simple. You don't have to like us. Just hand over the criminals. I'm just here to get the criminals you already have. Just hand them over. And if Minnesota complies, Trump wins quietly. If Minnesota refuses, Trump wins loudly. That's not blinking. That's checkmate positioning. And here's a deeper play. They're denying the left a legitimacy crisis. The left wants and needs images of federal agents versus crowds of civilians, okay? They need claims of unconstitutional mass arrests. They're not happening. You know it's not happening. But does the world know that? Does America need that? The left needs a moral panic, a shutdown showdown, international condemnation narratives. Trump, once again, boring enforcement, narrow targets, governors on the hook, courts on his side, public exhaustion with the activists, not with him and the law enforcement side. So he did what they hate most, I think. He de-escalated without conceding any authority. So what is this moment actually? I feared, and I said this yesterday before this was announced, I fear, you have to go after them. Otherwise, if you leave, you're Reagan in Beirut, and that's really bad. This is not Reagan in Beirut. This is Grant pausing before the next push, letting the other side step forward and expose itself. Trump did not blink. He lowered the noise. He tightened the rules. He moved the burden. He preserved legitimacy. He forced his opponents to make their own choices, loudly and publicly on center stage. And now Minnesota's leaders are standing alone saying, will not help remove criminals? I've been looking for things that are going to break spells because honestly, I think it's a spell. I do. You can look at it in the old way, or you can look at it just as words and media are so powerful. It's like casting a spell. But how do you break the spell of reasonable people who don't hate America? They don't want, they don't look at America as Turtle Island. They don't want to destroy everything. How do you break that spell and say, look what you're doing? This is it. I think. Could be wrong.